Making headlines for this week of April 21st. Connecting dots. Former Canadian Minister of Defense explains links between current geopolitics, geoeconomics, and extraterrestrials. Grand Illusion. Looking more deeply as to the real reasons for anti-Russian or anti-Eastern aggression. Preparing for change. While the wealthy can protect themselves in financial change, there may be some options for the general public as well. And juicing your day. Some healthy options for kick-starting your body while cleansing out those morning toxins.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. I'm choosing to start this week's newscast a little bit differently. Instead of leading with a story about a specific global event, I'm leading with a story that seeks to help link numerous events together. It is time that we all begin to explore more deeply just how profoundly interconnected so many issues are. At the same time, the geoeconomic and geopolitical events can be connected to the issue of the disclosure of our galactic families, and relates to the cover-up of the existence of civilizations and technologies of a non-Earth origin. In a moment, we will hear from one formerly high-level official who continues his advocacy on these subjects. First, however, CVN has reported previously about the FBI file that is the most viewed file from the documents that have been released for public view. This file gives an insight as to what so many people around the world are now really interested in. According to an article appearing on the Collective Evolution website on April 12th by Kaylee Brown, the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials has been gaining a lot of traction in recent years, especially thanks to the plethora of Freedom of Information Act requests. Tons of government agencies have declassified an overwhelming number of documents exposing not only the existence of UFOs, but the frequency at which they're spotted and the physics-defying maneuvers that they're carrying out. Of course, UFOs don't necessarily equate to extraterrestrial technology. However, a significant amount of people have come forward discussing the existence of extraterrestrial life, including civilian eyewitnesses, military personnel, and government officials from around the world. Mike Gravel, a former U.S. Democratic senator, was quoted in the article as saying that something is monitoring the planet, and they are monitoring it very cautiously because we are a very warlike planet. Arguably, one of the highest-ranking politicians advocating the issue of disclosure is a former Minister of Defense for the Canadian government, Paul Hellyer. Hellyer is well known not only for his political service, but perhaps more importantly for his two other projects: the exposure of the money mafia, the group of people who have been controlling the world, and his advocacy about the existence of civilizations and technologies from beyond Earth. Hellyer has published a book on the money mafia by the same title, Money Mafia. In the following audio clip, Hellyer takes a look and does quite a good job of combining the issues of disclosure along with the exposure of the global cabal and how some of these dots can be connected between the two issues.
My name is Paul Hellyer, and I am a former Minister of National Defense for Canada. This disturbing message is for the several million Americans, and for anyone else, who cares deeply about the future of their country and the planet Earth. The U.S. is in grave danger. Strangely, the peril is not from foreign enemies, but from enemies within. So I beg you to listen to a summary of the major problems, followed by some suggestions as to how the U.S. might be recaptured by loyal Americans, to the enormous relief of friends who have been watching helplessly from the sidelines. The stakes couldn't be higher. So I spent the 15 months following the Washington hearing feverishly writing a new book, incorporating what I think every American has the right to know to end the incredible naivety observed at the citizens' hearing. The name of the book is The Money Mafia, A World in Crisis. Most of my friends, both American and Canadian, tend to agree that the world is in a state of crisis. But very few are aware that the problems are not natural phenomena. They have been engineered by a very tiny elite group of rich, ruthless, and power-hungry people who have been deliberately keeping the majority of decent, hard-working taxpayers totally in the dark. The iron veil of secrecy is now nearing the end of its 7th decade. When World War II ended, little attention was given to Operation Paperclip, under which hundreds of Nazi scientists were brought to the U.S., given new identities, and then appointed to important jobs in the military and elsewhere. Some of them would have been aware of UFOs, of the ET presence, from their experience in working with them in the 1930s. The American military began to take the subject more seriously after retrieving one of the vehicles that crashed near Roswell, New Mexico, on July 4, 1947, and decided to back-engineer its technology, which was light years more advanced than anything that we had known. On Tuesday, July 8, 1947, at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, Roswell Airfield Commanding Officer Colonel William Blanchard announced in a press release the recovery of a flying disc. That was the truth. Later that same day, Brigadier General Roger Ramey presented to the press an alternative story. He claimed the Army had recovered a Rowan target device suspended by a neoprene balloon. That was a lie. In fact, it was the cornerstone lie of what was to become a cult of lying and disinformation that is still United States policy today, 68 years later. In my brief address to the Citizens Disclosure hearing, I said that the United States and much of the Western world is ultimately controlled by an unelected, unaccountable cabal. Its apex is the banking and financial cartel, followed by the oil cartel, the CEOs of the largest and most powerful transnational corporations, major intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA, and a major slice of the U.S. military. Their collective power and influence is incalculable, and it is their plan for the U.S. and the rest of us that is so alarming. Their plan is an empire greater in size and power than any empire before it. They call this the New World Order, which, ironically, is the same name Hitler used for the smaller empire he imagined. The New World Order, it will be a dictatorship of, by, and for a small minority of the rich and privileged elite. Much of its power lies in the privately owned banking system, but this power is almost absolute and can determine the fate of nations and their people. A system where nearly all money is created as debt, and debt that has to be repaid with interest, but where no one creates any money with which to pay the interest, is a dead end that leaves debtors with no alternative but to borrow the money to pay the interest and go deeper and deeper into debt. Banks can invest $5 million and leverage it to create $100 million in loans that have to be repaid with interest. They skim 95% off the top of every loan. That is the reason I call them the money mafia. Monetary reform is the most urgent of all essential reforms, and my book contains a specific formula that the brave Occupy Wall Street protesters could have used to advantage when asked, "But what do you suggest?" What they lacked was the answer to that question. If about 99% of the population don't understand a deception that has been responsible for the Great Depression of the 1930s, the terrible recessions of 1981-82, 1991, and the Great Recession of the 21st century, it's not too difficult to understand why there are so many skeptics about UFOs and their occupants, even though several species have been visiting planet Earth for thousands of years. The crashes near Roswell, New Mexico, were watershed events. In Canada, Wilbert Smith, a senior officer in our Federal Department of Transport, of which I later became minister, wrote a top-secret memorandum to his boss based on information he had received during a visit to our embassy in Washington. The memo, dated November 21st, 1950, read in part as follows. A. The matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States, rating higher even than the H-bomb. B. Flying saucers exist. C. Their modus operandi is unknown, but concentrated effort is being made by a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. D. The entire matter is considered by the United States authorities to be of tremendous significance. A control group of 12 senior civilian scientists and military officers was established by President Truman. They were known as the Majestic 12, or MJ-12, which issued a memorandum that included how to respond to UFO sightings by saying that they were natural phenomena, such as plasma or swamp gas, or that the observer might have been imbibing too much Jack Daniels bourbon. Nothing could be further from the truth. Under the Eisenhower administration, much of the physical engineering was transferred to underground facilities in Nevada and Arizona. Meanwhile, much of the control was transferred to civilian agencies in order to create plausible deniability as to its existence. When President Eisenhower wanted to take a look at the restricted areas, he was denied access. It was only when he threatened to send in the First Army that it was agreed that he could send 3 confidants to look at the secret areas 51 and S4. They reported that the Roswell vehicle was indeed being back-engineered by United States forces. President Eisenhower was so distressed by the situation that he included in his farewell address to the nation that his fellow Americans should beware of the military-industrial complex, which, according to one witness, was his way of saying that the ET file had fallen into the wrong hands. Indeed it had. It was under the control of the military-industrial complex, otherwise known as the financial, intelligence, and military wing of the all-pervasive cabal, which has seized control of the United States and much of the balance of the world. Beginning with Eisenhower, not one of the presidents of the United States has been given completely honest advice by his civil, military, and intelligence advisors, nor fully briefed on the ET presence and technology. The military-industrial complex adopted a strategy of perpetual warfare to enhance its own power and profit. Werner von Braun, the German rocket scientist who came to the U.S. at the end of World War II, told my friend Dr. Carol Rosen, who worked with him, that they, the military-industrial complex, in order to maintain perpetual war, had to have an enemy. First, it will be the communists, he said. Then it will be the terrorists. And finally, it will be the ETs. So far, the plan has been unfolding exactly as forecast. The cabal, sometimes referred to as the shadow government, has been in control. When Sarah McClendon, veteran White House reporter, asked President Bill Clinton why he didn't do something about UFO disclosure, Clinton replied, and I quote, "Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it," end of quote. Imagine the President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces isn't cleared to know what his troops are doing. Well, with the end of the Cold War, the Pentagon wrote a new defense plan, popularly known as a project for the new American century. It was very far-reaching and involved conquest of much of the world by financial or military means, whichever was easiest. The document, which very few people were aware of, admitted that it was so far-reaching that it might be too much for Americans to swallow in the absence of some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. Well, Lady Luck appeared to be on their side in the form of September the 11th, 2001. Amateur foreign pilots trained in the U.S. allegedly hijacked planes and flew them into the sides of the World Trade Towers 1 and 2, and then into the Pentagon. Later in the day, the buildings collapsed. President Bush declared war on the terrorists and invoked the provisions in the North Atlantic Treaty under which an attack on any one country is considered to be an attack on all. The reaction was unprecedented since the outbreak of World War II and the later attack on Pearl Harbor. The English-speaking world in particular was incensed, and a high percentage of Americans were prepared to nuke the perpetrators. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld soon announced that, quote, "that means war against Iraq," end of quote, even though there was absolutely no evidence of Iraqi complicity, none whatsoever. Although most Muslims had been sympathetic to the U.S. in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, as soon as the bombs started dropping on Baghdad, Moderate Muslims by the thousand were so outraged and overcome by hate that they opted for a terrorist response. From that day on, it would be difficult to find a terrorist who did not have "Made in the USA" etched on his or her soul. Now, more than a decade later, the situation becomes even darker as the truth about 9/11 begins to emerge from the burial ground of a controlled press. We find that high officials in the George W. Bush administration knew of the attack weeks in advance and made no effort to prevent it. On the contrary, the evidence points to complicity when we find that not just 2 nor 3 buildings collapsed, but 7. Some, if not all, have been rigged for controlled demolition. But that isn't all. A new weapon of mass destruction was used that reduced the concrete and steel to dust before it reached the ground. If you have any doubts about this, get a copy of Dr. Judy Wood's book entitled "Where Did the Towers Go?" 500 pages of meticulous evidence. The unfolding story reveals the greatest mass deception in history, with the most universally negative consequences. Far more important than the long lineups for security checks at airports, we have been stripped of our civil rights one by one, including, I regret to say, habeas corpus, reversing 800 years of progress. Country was set against country, religion against religion. Words like peace and negotiated settlement, which had been possibilities before 9/11, were lost in the jungle of lies. The cabal, also known as the military-industrial complex, was not interested in a just settlement. It wanted perpetual war, and that was what its heinous deception achieved. It also robbed the once great United States of America of its last vestige of moral leadership.
In next week's newscast, I will look at the remainder of this video that explores some of the possible solutions that could be implemented moving forward. In other geopolitical news, the news just seems to get worse and worse for the global cabal as their agenda continues to get exposed on multiple fronts. Someone, somewhere, must be totally freaking out, wondering how so many things could be going so wrong to expose everything they have done and are trying to do. An article appearing on the Russia Insider website on April 20th has reported that Syrian forces shot down an ISIS drone that was targeting civilians in eastern Syria on Wednesday, according to multiple reports. The drone was allegedly carrying a NATO Bulgarian GLV-HEF projectile. Al-Masdar News was cited in the article as reporting the following. According to the NDF, their forces in the village of Abu al-Ayah downed the Islamic State attack drone while it was flying over their positions and bombing civilians in the area. The bomb used by the Islamic State to attack the civilians of Abu al-Ayah was identified by the Syrian military as a NATO-sponsored projectile, which is produced in Bulgaria. ISIL has been using these projectile bombs to harass the civilians in East Homs and Deir ez-Zor for several months now, forcing the Syrian military to constantly monitor these villages and towns in eastern Syria. The article also notes at least one other incident where NATO munitions from Bulgaria somehow ended up in the hands of Daesh or ISIS militants. The evidence is already coming out that, once again, the chemical attack against Syrian civilians that the West is trying to blame on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was in fact done by forces loyal to the U.S. and Western interests. A few of the more recent headlines over the past couple of weeks include the following. On April 12th, RT reported on a Russian veto of the West's misconceived Syria resolution at the UN Security Council. In this article, it was reported that Moscow has vetoed a US-backed resolution condemning the Khan Shaykhun incident on April 4th as a chemical attack, while demanding that Syria open up its military bases to inspections. On April 13th, there was an unconfirmed report from Adam Gary of theduran.com that Israel had once again bombed Syria near the capital city of Damascus. This would represent a violation of international law, something that Israel has done repeatedly on many occasions. The Syrian president recently spoke to the BBC and denounced the accusations against him as being 100% fabrication. Assad pointed out that the U.S. is working hand and glove with Daesh. Based on the evidence of the NATO projectile reported moments ago, this would appear to validate Assad's claims. As well, Alex Christoforou, in his Duran article on April 19th, reported that we may never really know what happened in Idlib, Syria on April 4th, ever since the United States decided to forego an investigation and act as judge, jury, and executioner with flimsy, if not outright, false evidence. Christoforou describes meeting with an expert in body language to study comments made by both Assad and statements made by Major General McMaster. Both videos will appear in the show transcript for listeners to view and decide for themselves. The general conclusion, however, is that Assad was telling the truth and that McMaster's was not. The industrial military complex also has a massive pain in the rear end, and her name is Tulsi Gabbard, according to an article on the 21st Century Wire News website on April 10th. Congresswoman and Iraq war veteran Tulsi Gabbard continues to face down the mainstream propaganda machine with her based and skeptical opinions surrounding the war on Syria, including the recent attacks on Sherat Air Base by the United States as a reprisal for the alleged chemical attack on Idlib by Damascus. It's not surprising within the American political party system that if you don't agree with, quote-unquote, the gang, they come for your blood, and this is exactly what's happening to Gabbard. Her previous fact-finding visit to Syria in 2016 had already begun to turn heads, but now, after the CNN interview with Wolf Blitzer, who happens to all of a sudden like Donald Trump, the Democrats are circling Tulsi Gabbard in increasing droves. More will continue to be revealed over the coming weeks as this event, among others, continue to be exposed to reveal the wizard behind the curtain. In financial news, linking together the geopolitical and geoeconomic events, one can begin to piece together all of the events in the Middle East and also all the events that seek to make an enemy out of Russia. The global cabal is playing a very desperate game in an attempt to save their failing agenda while also attempting to stop the introduction of a new financial paradigm, even if it is only a temporary one, while also preventing the shift in human and planetary consciousness. This week, we look first to an article by Rory Hall appearing on the goldseek.com website on April 2nd. Hall offers an interesting analogy for interpreting some of the events that have been unfolding around the world. Hall writes the following: How would you feel if you had planned a gathering of your closest family and friends? Your list of invites grows to include some 185 guests. You also invited your known troublemaking cousin. Your cousin shows up drunk, armed, and belligerent. He begins harassing a good portion of the guests, smashes some of your prized possessions, and then, as an added bonus, he shoots and kills 12 of your guests. As your cousin is leaving the gathering, he takes your wallet and your wife's purse. He also goes in your bedroom, opens your safe, and removes all your gold and silver. Your cousin now has all your credit and debit cards and all the cash you had on hand. You cannot conduct business in any manner. You can't even pay the caterer for the services. If this sounds like a horrific story, you're right, it is. The drunken cousin is a metaphor for how the U.S. has been acting for the past several years and how it has treated countries around the world. Do you suppose some of these nations are more than a little tired of being treated in this manner? This would explain, therefore, the whole process that the BRICS alliance has been undertaking since its creation in 2010, building a new system that would render the old system obsolete. Russia and China are moving out from under the control of the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency, and active movements are being made to launch a gold-backed financial system. Paul writes that we learned in March of 2016 that Kazakhstan had been in formal talks with the Shanghai Gold Exchange regarding gold as currency along the New Silk Road, or the Belt and Road Initiative, as it is now known, spearheaded by China. Then, in October of 2016, we continued covering how China had been working directly with the International Monetary Fund to get the yuan renminbi currency added to the special drawing rights basket of currencies for global trade. China began working their CIPS system, Global Trade Settlement System, in October of 2016, the same time the renminbi joined the SDR basket, allowing China to conduct global trade outside of the U.S.-owned and operated SWIFT system. Both systems are used to settle global trade transactions, and the SWIFT system has been geared to the Federal Reserve note, or the U.S. dollar, while the CIPS system is geared to the Chinese renminbi. China strategically stated their gold reserves for the first time in 6 years in the lead-up to the SDR announcement last year. This exact strategic announcement by China was predicted here on the website. Enter Russia and their global trade settlement system based in Russian rubles. It is not quite ready for prime time, but not to worry, they are working around the clock to put the final pieces in place. Within the past 2 weeks, Russia announced to the world where the system is, specifically, along with what is already in place. This should begin to give people an introductory idea as to why Russia is being targeted as an enemy at this time, with some attention being given to China as well. An article on the Geopolitics website on April 13th shares that it appears that the real reason why Trump capitulated to the deep state so quickly is the final BRICS leadership's decision to start dumping of the fiat dollar in matters of mutual trade and economic cooperation between the BRICS member countries. This latest counterattack against the Khazarian banking dynasty is definitely putting Donald Trump's most ambitious campaign promise of making America great again through economic recovery and military upgrade in grave danger, as the BRICS alliance starts requiring the U.S. government to pay for BRICS resources with real, hard currencies only. This final outcome that we are witnessing may now seem sudden to most who have not been paying attention, but it has been many years in the making. The article continues. This highly coordinated dollar dumping was initiated 10 years ago to give the West enough time to adjust to the new reality that the East could no longer sit idly by as the other side continued with its regressive foreign policies. Such offensive was capped with a massive display of cultural strength meant to correct the false technological claims of the West during the Beijing Olympics a year later. Incidentally, what was to be a gradual move from fiat to gold-backed currencies still resulted in the 2008 Western financial crash and massive resignations of banking CEOs in 2012, LIBOR, and other interest-rigging investigations, and finally, the unprecedented papal resignation of Benedict XVI in 2013. Considering the sheer size of the BRICS economies, this decision to dump the dollar should put the Khazarian mafia where they need to be, into the dustbin of irrelevance. On April 19th, RT reported that the central banks of Russia and China are the world's biggest gold buyers. Since the end of 2008, the gold reserves of China have nearly tripled from 600 to 1,762 tons. The Central Bank of Russia bought 356,000 ounces of gold in February, becoming the largest buyer of the precious metal among the world's central banks. Business Daily Vedomosti reported, quoting IMF data. Russia currently has 1,415 tons of gold. However, these numbers may not be completely accurate. Informed market watchers have been observing the events carefully. From a Sputnik news article back in March of 2016, William F. Engdahl reported that market watchers believe Even that amount of gold in China's central bank vaults is being politically vastly understated so as to not cause alarm bells to ring too loudly in Washington and London. Meanwhile, Russia's Eurasian allies, Kazakhstan and Belarus, are also increasing their bullion reserves. It means that the countries, which are both members of the Eurasian Economic Union and participants of the China-led Belt and Road project, are viewing gold as a basis for the Eurasian economy. Some statistics shared by Engdahl include the following. Japan's debt to gross domestic product, or GDP, is over 200%. The Eurozone's debt to GDP ratio is at about 94%. The US has a debt to GDP ratio at about 103%. But by contrast, Russia's debt to GDP ratio is at 18%. Engdahl notes that this is a statistic conveniently overlooked by Western rating agencies because they are engaged with the U.S. Treasury war against Russia. As has been reported by numerous sources, including CVN for a number of years, the movement towards a gold-backed system is becoming very public now and increasingly harder to deny. Essentially, what this means is that the fiat currency system, led by the US dollar, is approaching a point of being globally irrelevant, if it has not happened already. In the show summary will be a link to a report by Dave, host of the X22 report, where he comments on Trump's role in preparing the U.S. for the collapse of the central banking system. Although it will not be an easy transition for many, especially those who have no understanding of what is going on, it is a very much needed and necessary event if the world is to move forward in getting out of a criminally fraudulent system that has enslaved humans worldwide while also profiting from the destruction of our planet for power and control. In Europe, the DM25 group project, being headed up by former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis, recently launched their plan for trying to deal with the fraudulent Western banking system in Europe. From the Varoufakis website, the following was reported on April 3rd. On March 25th, 2017, as Europe's leaders gathered in Rome to celebrate the disintegration of the EU, DM25 was there at Teatro Italia, launching our major policy paper, the European New Deal, a comprehensive economic and social policy agenda applicable to the whole of Europe, not just the EU, by which to save Europe and, more importantly, to make Europe worth saving. The European New Deal, posted on the DM25 website, explains a bit more. The principles of the document include 4 primary areas of concentration: basic goods provision, turning wealth into investment, sharing the returns of capital, and democratic macroeconomic management. Among the policies are included these 3: taming finance, regulating banking and establishing a new public digital payments platform that ends the monopoly of banks over Europe's payments. 2. Fixing the euro, saving the Eurozone by ending self-defeating austerity and minimizing the cost of its disintegration in case of its occurrence. And 3. Green investment, linking central banking operations with public investment programs and the new public digital payments platform. The new European deal is available as a PDF document in both long form and a summary version of 26 pages. Now, what is not clear from this announcement is whether or not there are any active plans to prepare for the movement towards a gold-backed financial system as reported moments ago. It is hard to imagine that this group is not aware of this financial shift, so perhaps more information may be forthcoming with regard to this. As the current financial paradigm appears to be moving towards a public death, many, like myself, are left with questions as to what to do with any assets one may currently have. RT recently reported that hackers had recently exposed the tools used by the NSA for spying on financial transactions. The NSA claims, of course, that this puts the global banking system potentially at risk. For those attached to the current system, this may be considered a threat. For those who understand that this exposes all those who have been stealing from and controlling humanity, this would be good news. One CVN listener, a very good personal friend of mine, actually followed my advice years ago and bought into Bitcoin. He recently informed me that he had done this, and in fact, he had now tripled his investment. Not having had the resources, I was unable to do so, but it was great that he was able to benefit from this. There are no firm guarantees unless one is perhaps wealthy enough to purchase physical gold, silver, or possibly other physical resources. For the rest of us, we may have to explore some other options. Many are using PayPal, but even PayPal is being exposed for some of the outrageous fees that they have become famous for charging. Another company is seeking to challenge PayPal. This company is called TransferWise. Personally, I have been giving very serious consideration to switching over to this new system. A website promoting the 2017 Money Conference is also promoting the presence of Tavat Henricus, the co-founder of TransferWise. It is unclear as to whether this conference is upcoming or whether it has now passed. Henricus will be speaking, if he has not already spoken, on the subject of the true democratization of finance. He has been quoted as saying that banks start by asking how much they can charge. We, referring to TransferWise, start by asking how little can we charge. CVN invites listeners to do some exploration of this company to decide for oneself if this company offers a morally and ethically better model than PayPal. One other option for consideration, and this is also an option I am considering, as I have not been able to have a bank account or a credit card for many years. I'm looking to open a Bitcoin account and link it to a Bitcoin debit credit card. The website paysent.io claims to offer a better approach to Bitcoin debit cards. According to the website, the card's balance is always held in Bitcoin. There is the benefit of secure shopping with virtual cards, no monthly or card issuance fees, and also a coinback rewards program. All links will be in the show transcript for those choosing to learn more. TransferWise, Bitcoin, and the PaySent card appear, at least at this time, to be some good options to consider, but I hope to offer more information about these in the coming weeks. In more disclosure-related news, as we heard at the beginning of the newscast, much information is being revealed by many individuals from both prominent and non-prominent positions around the world. As CVN has been trying to do, connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated events is not only challenging, but it is becoming increasingly more important if one is to gain a more complete picture and understanding of what is happening around the planet, but also within human and planetary consciousness. CVN reported a few weeks ago the new documentary project being undertaken by Dr. Stephen Greer. Greer is another individual who speaks to the issue of disclosure and the cover-up by governments. In an update this week on this project, it has been announced that the documentary will have its premiere in Los Angeles on April 24th. Included in this premiere will also be the official launch of the book. From the SeriousDisclosure.com website, one may be able to see that not only are very credible people coming forward with very relevant information, but the people of the world are increasingly demonstrating that they are tired of the cover-up and are ready to take a step forward in evolution with the revelations that so many know, but leaders are not willing to acknowledge. The website shares the following. Back in 2013, Sirius reached #1 on Netflix for documentaries and was acclaimed throughout the world. Unacknowledged, the second documentary, will focus on the historic files of the Disclosure Project and how UFO secrecy has been ruthlessly enforced, and why. The best evidence for extraterrestrial contact dating back decades will be presented with direct top-secret witness testimony, documents, and UFO footage. The viewer will learn that a silent coup d'etat has occurred dating back to the 1950s, and that the Congress, the President, and other world leaders have been sidelined by criminal elements within the military-industrial financial complex. Super-secret, unacknowledged, special access projects, or USAPs, dealing with ET technology, zero-point free energy, anti-gravity research, and the real agenda behind the Star Wars Defense Initiative will be exposed as only we can. With trillions of dollars of illegally obtained funding, these USAPs have become the greatest threat to world peace and the human future ever faced by humanity. They will be exposed. The project names, underground bases, corporations, and agencies involved will be named. The evidence for interstellar civilizations will be presented, along with evidence of an illegal cartel hiding from the public and presidents alike. The truth that we are not alone, and that we now know how they get here. An expose of these technological developments, begun just after World War II, will explain the reason behind the secrecy. Oil, the petrodollar, coal, public utilities, surface roads, jets, and all current means of energy generation and transportation will be rendered obsolete once the truth is known. It is time. Various links will be in the show transcript for those wishing to view the trailer for Unacknowledged, or the full Serious Disclosure documentary, as well as a link to an interview given by Greer in 2016 discussing the Unacknowledged project. Over to science and technology-related news now. For those who have watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, they may recall having been introduced a couple of times to the sonic shower. Like so many other revelations coming forward at this time, technology similar to this appears to be on the edge of being introduced to humanity. According to an article on Yahoo.com, scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee have developed a dryer that could make doing laundry much quicker. Called the ultrasonic dryer, it's expected to be up to 5 times more energy efficient than most conventional dryers and be able to dry a large load of clothes in about half the time. Instead of using heat the way most dryers do, the ultrasonic dryer relies on high-frequency vibrations. Devices called green transducers convert electricity into vibrations, shaking the water from clothes. The scientists say that this method will allow a medium load of laundry to dry in 20 minutes, which is significantly less time than the average 50 minutes it takes in many heat-based machines. The new technology has the potential to deliver massive savings with regard to energy use in the average home. The ultrasonic dryer allegedly delivers a few wonderful benefits. According to the article, the drying technology also leaves less lint behind than normal dryers do, since the majority of lint is created when the hot air stream blows tiny fibers off the clothing. Drying clothes without heat also reduces the chance that their colors will fade. A video put out by the U.S. Department of Energy, attached to the news story, reports how transducers, along with a custom amplifier, are used inside the dryer in order to deliver vibrations instead of heat to dry the clothing, and the vibrations turn the moisture into a cold mist. One has to keep in mind that if technology is being introduced now, then someone has known about it and has been developing it for many years before. Is it possible that some of the approximate 6,000 patents that have been suppressing technology for humanity are now starting to be released? Well, perhaps an argument could be made to suggest this, absolutely. However, it still remains to be seen how quickly this technology and so many other suppressed technologies actually make it into public domain. Oak Ridge National Laboratory appears to be one such institution that has connections to certain suppressed technologies. In a separate article on the energy.gov website, a story by Mike Mueller is reporting that the advancements in additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing, are entering yet another milestone phase. Mueller writes, Oak Ridge National Laboratory is at it again. This time they produced the world's first 3D printed excavator. But this prototype, which debuted in March at the ConExpo AGG in Las Vegas, does more than just move dirt. It demonstrates the latest advancements in additive manufacturing, including the ability to print with metal alloys. Additive manufacturing, commonly referred to as 3D printing, makes three-dimensional parts by laying down thin layers of material in succession. The technology cuts down on time and wasted materials, making manufactured products quicker and cheaper to prototype and build. The excavator, known as Project AME, standing for Additive Manufactured Excavator, uses three different 3D printing platforms, materials, and processes. The cab was created using carbon fiber composites and took just 5 hours to print on the Cincinnati Incorporated Big Area Additive Manufacturing Machine. The all-steel boom, or the hydraulic arm, was printed in 5 days and used Wolfpack robotic welding arm to create large-scale metal pieces. Finally, the 13-pound aluminum heat exchanger was printed on a concept laser machine that produces metal parts through a powder-based laser melting process. The rapid advancement of this technology is very similar to the rapid releases of new communications and computer technologies. It will represent a very dramatic and significant shift in the way humans live moving forward. What we are witnessing, basically, is the end of the manufacturing industry as we have previously known it. It is an evolution towards a more efficient and customized form of manufacturing based on specific needs without wasting valuable resources. Technology is now showing that almost any item, metal, fiber, tissue, organic or otherwise, has the potential to be 3D printed. What this also means is that this is merely the next step towards the science of replicators and replication, the use of energy manipulations to produce or even reduce and recycle a physical item. Another evolution taking place is in the field of energy production. As most listeners already know, everything is energy, and it is from this energy that it is capable to power various technologies in physical form. However, the global cabal has successfully been able to get humanity hooked and addicted to the electrical energy produced from sources that are now being shown to be harmful to humans and to the planet. Over the last few years, numerous videos have attempted to share products that were claimed to be so-called free energy devices. Some later turned out to be hoaxes, but there have always been some that lack a reasonable scientific explanation as to why they are able to produce a certain amount of energy. Recently, at the New Earth Festival, during their closing ceremonies on the 5th day, an announcement was made by the New Earth Nation group introducing their free energy device. The website, ascensionenergies.com, posted the article on April 14th. In the video, the introduction of the device begins around the 54-minute mark of the ceremony. According to the article, New Earth Nation has made a historical announcement regarding a free energy generator called QT-Pi. It consists of 2 copper coils and a high-frequency generator, which creates a magnetic vortex. It plugs into your standard electricity output, which gets amplified over 300 to 400%. That's enough power to run your average house appliances such as lights, air conditioners, water heaters, and cooking appliances. All the materials are completely off the shelf using copper and a 3D printer. The wheels are being set into motion to 3D print larger quantities and create bigger power objectives. Market entry with governments are already in the process of negotiations and are helping to get it out to the people. During the video, any participants who had a science or engineering background were invited to come to the front of the crowd for the demonstration, and after the demonstration, one of the hosts explained the challenges of free energy devices.
For some of you, you may not realize what a big deal this is. When you walk away from here, it'll start sinking in and you'll start realizing what you have just witnessed. In my journey over the last 12 years, I have come across more than a dozen inventors that have come up with all kinds of incredible free energy devices. And not once have we been able to get it to this point. Not that they didn't work, there's always something that happens. When you start dabbling in creating alternative or free energy devices, what you're doing, you're putting your finger into the matrix of creation. You're messing with creation itself, and it contradicts all the laws of nature that we've been taught at school and at university, and it somehow disturbs the reality around us, and it makes the inventors go crazy. I've experienced this. They lose their mind, they start doing weird things, it makes the funders go crazy. Somehow the moment you start getting right to the final line of launching this new energy device, things start going wrong. For us to get to this point is a bloody miracle. So well done, Sasha.
Thank you, sir. I will say this, that we wouldn't be sitting here had we not already begun the process of negotiating market entry with governments. So we've sat down with heads of state, with energy ministers, finance ministers, and pretty powerful people in the military-industrial complex. These are not people who want to co-opt the technology. These are people who want to protect us getting the technology into the market, because they also know that this here represents the end to war, disease, and poverty, one way or the other.
I would like to add, from the perspective of the Ubuntu movement and the philosophy of contributionism, this device becomes the platform to unite the people, upon which we build our future communities, of united communities. Because what has been happening until now, for the last 100 odd years, is that electricity has been used to divide and control people. Now, the fact that we can provide our communities with their own supply of electricity, there's still going to be some interesting hurdles to cross there. As you know, laws and legislations have been put in place, and some countries may not do this, but we will overcome those. But the moment a community has their own ability and access to provide their own source of electricity, that becomes the platform to unite the people and start working together and stop fearing and having the courage to move forward and create that new reality for themselves.
One of the hosts of the ceremony explained that the device was capable of putting out about 3 kilowatt hours. This would not be enough for a typical North American house, but another host mentioned how several devices could be linked together. The announcement seems very positive, and if plans move quickly forward for 3D printing this technology, along with relevant government approvals, free energy could be made very easily available to countless millions across Asia and Africa who have been living without power to provide for basic necessities. No longer is it necessary to have ugly hydro wires destroying the aesthetic beauty of communities, nor is it necessary to have harmful large-scale transmission lines or huge wind turbines to cause harm to humans and animals. In case you missed it, we are in the midst of an incredible transformation. Finally, in health-related news, for those who have taken time to do more research, they may be familiar with the idea that cancer and arguably other illnesses within the body are unable to exist in an alkaline environment. It might make sense, therefore, to establish a habit of starting one's day in a way that accomplishes several goals at the same time, giving the body the water it needs while also giving it the tools to maintain alkalinity, and thus increasing the chances of avoiding certain health conditions. To be fair, and also to be clear, no health practice will always guarantee success. As humanity moves along in its shifting consciousness, we often get confused by certain solutions that seem to work miracles for some and yet seem to have little or no impact on others. This, therefore, emphasizes the differences between each human, but may also suggest that one's soul may also be guiding one towards certain lessons or solutions as part of one's service to humanity and one's life path. Each illness, although generally identified as something by the established medical profession, does not take into account the specific vibration of the illness as caused by the combinations of frequencies that came from the uniquely different environment that each soul was born into, and the unique stresses experienced by each soul in his or her life path. I would be prepared to bet that reproductive organ cancers in either men or women will be vibrationally different between each individual as the stresses and conditions to which each was exposed will be different, and the emotional, mental, spiritual state of each will also be a contributor to certain frequencies in that mix. It is my personal belief, therefore, that no singular medical treatment will have the same effect upon all people. However, there are some general practices that one can begin to explore, and this story offers some possibilities. An article from the Natural Living Ideas website from July of last year by Sierra Bright explores 4 drinks to help alkalize the body and kickstart one's day. Bright offers the following. The way you start your morning can have a significant impact on how you feel for the rest of the day, as you've probably experienced at least one time or another. While you probably think that coffee is the best thing you can drink to get going, there are actually much better and healthier ways to get your day off to a great start. As the body is especially acidic in the morning, tasked with cleansing it overnight, the last thing it needs is something more acidic like coffee. What it does need is an energy booster, as the tissues are dehydrated and in desperate need of healthy fluids to push out those toxins. She offers 5 reasons for starting one's day with an alkalizing drink: boosting energy levels, strengthening the immune system, improved digestion, weight loss, and also premature aging. Bright notes the following. An alkalized, antioxidant-packed drink helps the body fight off free radicals, which can slow the aging process, including signs like wrinkles and sagging skin. It can actually improve the skin's health, helping to keep you looking younger. The 4 drinks that she offers for people to consider are the following. 1. A pineapple metabolism booster. This simple 3-ingredient recipe contains organic, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, which is well known to be an incredible fat burner that can help you lose weight. Apple cider vinegar has antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral properties, and is said to be beneficial for a wide range of issues from allergies, acne, and high cholesterol to joint pain, chronic fatigue, and acid reflux. Raw organic honey adds a touch of sweetness and has its own benefits too. The organic, unprocessed type not only offers anti-inflammatory properties, it provides vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that can strengthen the immune system, as well as bifidobacteria, a group of bacteria linked to digestive and immune health. Number 2, Sweet Greens Mood Enhancer Drink. If you tend to wake up grumpy, the Sweet Greens Mood Enhancer might be your ideal go-to morning shot. It contains spinach, which is packed with all sorts of mood-boosting nutrients, from anxiety-relieving magnesium to depression-battling folates. The berries are what make this green drink sweet, and they also offer a wide range of powerful health benefits. Those antioxidants also aid the brain in producing dopamine, essential to your mood, as well as memory function. Finally, the slice of ginger further enhances many of those benefits while adding a great taste too. It also increases levels of those important neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, helping you to get focused and productive, improve your memory, and your mood. Number 3, Sweet Citrus Morning Energizer. Lemons are famous for helping one to get the morning started out right. This citrus fruit can improve digestion and battle morning breath as it combats bacteria in the mouth. As it's loaded with vitamin C, it also pumps up the immune system and even helps cleanse the liver. In fact, Dr. Alexander F. Beddoe writes in Biological Ionization in Human Nutrition that the liver can make more enzymes out of lemon juice than any other food, which naturally gives the organ a boost. Recent research from the Harvard School of Public Health found that consuming carrots isn't just good for the eyes, it can positively affect brain function and even improve your mood. Carrots are packed with antioxidants known as carotenoids, and carotenoid levels are linked to mood health. They also offer wide-ranging benefits like battling free radicals, strengthening the immune system, and helping to protect against disease. Number 4, sugar-powered alkaline detoxer. We've already mentioned the powerful detoxing, anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting benefits of ginger, lemon, and apple cider vinegar. Now, combine that with turmeric, and you'll have a true superpowered alkaline detoxer. Turmeric offers potent anti-inflammatory properties as well as being antiviral and antibacterial. It can kill intestinal parasites, treat yeast infections, prevent cancer from spreading, and possibly prevent or slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Blending together ginger, lemon, turmeric, and organic unfiltered apple cider vinegar into a morning drink each day can help relieve symptoms of digestive disorders and lessen the risk of heart attack, control damaging inflammation, and reduce pain, battle free radicals, and cleanse the liver. Of course, it also helps keep the body more alkaline, also lowering cancer risk. An article specifically about turmeric comes from the Best Healthy Guide website from September of 2016. This article shares that turmeric is regarded as a miraculous spice whose positive effects on the body are backed up by more than 600 health benefits. This is mostly due to its active compound called curcumin, which has a wide plethora of health benefits and healing properties. But did you know that whole turmeric can help with brain regeneration? The article continues. Aromatic turmerone is a fat-soluble compound found in turmeric, which is often overlooked. German researchers have thoroughly studied its effects on neurostem cells, and what they found was that the number of neutral stem cells increased by 80% when exposed to aromatic turmerone. In other words, a healing effect was happening. When used on rats, they created healthy new brain cells and noticed a size growth in both the subventricular zone and the hippocampus. Ard-turmerone, or aromatic turmerone, is a potent regenerative which can aid NSCs in brain regeneration, and it is believed to help in cases of degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or stroke. Apart from promoting stem cell proliferation, it also distinguishes between stem cells and neurons, which is the main goal of regenerative medicine. On the other hand, curcumin has been found to boost the overall memory of Alzheimer's patients. The simple recipes for each drink can be found in the article, and the link is in the show summary for this story. Also in the show summary will be a link to how to grow your own unlimited supply of lemons. As we heard in the last story, many toxins are released in our bodies as we sleep. I also mentioned that many diseases, such as cancer, are anaerobic, meaning that they thrive in environments where there is no oxygen, and also where the environment is more acidic. Oxygen is vital for the body, and therefore it may be wise to consider putting more oxygen into your home environment. How might this be achieved? An article from the Minds.com website on April 18th explores oxygenating one's home or living and work environment using plants. According to this article, environmental activist and CEO Kamal Mittal has figured out a way to counteract pollution on a local scale. In a short speech given during one of the TED Talks series, Mittal shares his story and his research.
Some 17 years ago, I became allergic to Delhi's air. My doctors told me that my lung capacity had gone down to 70% and it was killing me. With the help of IIT, Terry, and learnings from NASA, we discovered that there are 3 basic green plants, common green plants with which we can grow all the fresh air we need indoors to keep us healthy. We've also found that you can reduce the fresh air requirements into the building while maintaining industry indoor air quality standards. The 3 plants are areca palm, mother-in-law's tongue, and money plant. Areca palm is a plant which removes CO2 and converts it into oxygen. We need 4 shoulder-high plants per person, and in terms of plant care, we need to wipe the leaves every day in Delhi, and perhaps once a week in cleaner air cities. We have to grow them in vermi manure, which is sterile, or hydroponics, and take them outdoors every 3 to 4 months. The second plant is mother-in-law's tongue, which is again a very common plant, and we call it a bedroom plant because it converts CO2 into oxygen at night. And we need 6 to 8 waist-high plants per person. The third plant is money plant, and this is again a very common plant, preferably grows in hydroponics. And this particular plant removes formaldehydes and other volatile chemicals. With these 3 plants, you can grow all the fresh air you need. In fact, you could be in a bottle with a cap on top, and you would not die at all, and you would not need any fresh air. We have tried these plants at our own building in Delhi, which is a 50,000 square feet, 20-year-old building, and it has close to 1,200 such plants for 300 occupants. Our studies have found that there is a 42% probability of one's blood oxygen going up by 1% if one stays indoors in this building for 10 hours. The government of India has discovered or published a study to show that this is the healthiest building in New Delhi. And the studies show that compared to other buildings, there is a reduced incidence of eye irritation by 52%, respiratory systems by 34%, headaches by 24%, lung impairment by 12%, and asthma by 9%. And this study has been published on September 8, 2008, and it's available on the Government of India website. Our experience points to an amazing increase in human productivity by over 20% by using these plants, and also a reduction in energy requirements in buildings by an outstanding 15% because you need less fresh air. We're now replicating this in a 1.75 million square feet building, which will have 60,000 indoor plants. Why is this important? It is also important for environment because the world's energy requirements are expected to grow by 30% in the next decade. 40% of the world's energy is taken up by buildings currently, and 60% of the world's population will be living in buildings in cities with a population of over 1 million in the next 15 years. And there is a growing preference for living and working in air-conditioned spaces.
As Meadle noted, he was able to heal himself while also creating one of the healthiest buildings in New Delhi, greatly improving the health of all employees. A link to a longer interview with Meadle will appear in the show transcript for this story. It is unclear what impact plants such as these may have upon the chemicals used in chemtrail spraying, for example, but it may perhaps bring comfort to many knowing that their home is at least healthy enough to allow the body to rest and recharge in the most oxygenated environment possible, especially during the sleeping hours. In this week's final words, I would like to close this week with 2 audio clips from videos found on YouTube. The first contains a few minutes from an interview with actor Will Smith describing the facing of his fears while skydiving in Dubai. As we move through these times, we are all, myself included, being reminded of the importance of facing and overcoming fears. The second audio segment comes from the valedictorian speech of a graduate from Harvard last year. According to the YouTube page where the speech was posted, Harvard University has called 2016 graduate Donovan Livingston's spoken verse commencement speech one of the most powerful, heartfelt student speeches you will ever hear. It is my hope that you will find some empowerment, joy, and perhaps even a reminder to yourself in these 2 audio clips. Create a wonderful week. Until our next moment of now, I leave you with Will Smith, followed by Donovan Livingston in this week's dose of empowerment.
Fear has become a real practice for me since about three years ago. I went skydiving in Dubai. As skydiving is a really interesting confront with fear, right? Yeah. So what happens is you go out the night before and you take a drink with your friends and somebody says, yeah, we should go skydiving tomorrow. And you go, yeah, we'll go skydiving tomorrow. Yeah, yeah, and you go, yeah. And everybody goes, yeah. And you go home and you by yourself, you're like, Right? You're like, well, I mean, they was drunk too. Maybe, I mean, we don't have to go. We don't have to do it. So then that night you're laying in your bed and you just keep, and you're terrified. You keep imagining over and over again jumping out of an airplane and you can't figure out why you would do that. Right? And you're laying there and you have the worst night's sleep of your life, but you still have the hope that your friends were drunk. So you wake up the next day and you go, down and you say where you were going to meet and everybody's there. You're like, oh, shit. All right, cool. So you get in the van and you don't know that your friends had the same night that you had because they're pretending like they didn't. They're like, yeah, man, my uncle's a Navy SEAL and, this is going to be great. I've been looking forward to this. And you're like, oh, my God. And your stomach is terrible. You can't eat and everything, but you don't want to be the only punk who doesn't jump out of this airplane. So you get there and then you have this safety brief. And you're standing there and the guys will tell you, well, if the chute doesn't open, what's going to happen is you're doing, well, why the hell, what could happen? That the chute wouldn't open, right? So you do a thing, and what you do is your first jump, you're attached to a guy who is going, he's going to walk you out. So you go, and you get there, and there's an airplane, and nobody's stopping. Everybody's still going. So you get onto the airplane, and you're sitting there, and it's extra because you're sitting on some dude's lap, some stranger. You're sitting on his lap, and it's like, you're trying to make small talk. Yeah, man. So you be jumping with people all the time, huh? Right? So, and then you just want to make sure, you got kids, right? You got people you need to see, right? You just want to make sure he's serious, right? So you get in there, so everything's normal. So you fly and you go up to 14,000 feet, and you notice there's a light. It's red and it's yellow and green, right? So right now the light's red. So then you start thinking at some point the light's going to go green, but you don't know what's going to happen. And you wait and it goes yellow and the light goes green and somebody opens the door, and in that moment you realize you've never been in a freaking airplane with the door open. Terror, 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 terror. So you go, if you were smart, you sat in the back so you don't go first, and then people start going out of the airplane. And you go, and the guy walks you up to the end of the thing, and you're standing and your toes are on the edge, and you're looking out down to death. And they say, on 3. And they say, 1, 2, and he pushes you on 2 because people grab on 3, right? Right? And you go, and you fall out of the airplane, and in 1 second, you realize that it's the most blissful experience of your life. You're flying, right? It doesn't feel like falling, right? It's like you actually are kind of held a little bit by the wind, and then you start falling, and there's zero fear. You realize that the point of maximum danger is the point of minimum fear. It's bliss. It's bliss. And you're flying. Right? And you're doing that. And then 20 seconds, 25 seconds, 40 seconds. And you have enough time to just kind of be like, oh, shit, that's that building. I like that one. Oh, you can see the ocean. Right? You start doing all of that. And the lesson for me was, why were you scared in your bed the night before? What do you need that fear for? Just don't go. Why are you scared in your bed 16 hours before you jump? Why are you scared in the car? Why could you not enjoy breakfast? What did you need that? The fear is fear of what? You're nowhere even near the airplane. Everything up to the stepping out, there's actually no reason to be scared. It only just ruins your day. You don't have to jump. And then in that moment, all of a sudden, where you should be terrified is the most blissful experience of your life. And God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror. On the other side of your maximum fear are all of the best things in life. You know. So that was my experience with skydiving and fear.
Education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is a great equalizer of the conditions of men. Horace Mann, 1848. At the time of his remarks, I couldn't read, I couldn't write. Any attempt to do so, punishable by death. For generations, we have known of knowledge's infinite power, yet somehow we have never questioned the keeper of the keys, the guardians of information. Unfortunately, I've seen more dividing and conquering in this order of operations, a heinous miscalculation of reality. For some, the only difference between a classroom and a plantation is time. How many times must we be made to feel like quotas, like tokens and coined phrases, diversity, inclusion? There are days I feel like one, like only, a lonely blossom in a briar patch of broken promises. But hey, I've always been a thorn in the side of injustice, disruptive, talkative, a distraction with a passion that transcends the confines of my own consciousness, beyond your curriculum, beyond your standards. I stand here, a manifestation of love and pain, with veins pumping revolution. I am the strange fruit that grew too ripe for the poplar tree. I am a dream act, dream deferred, incarnate, and a movement, an amalgam of memories America would care to forget. My past alone won't allow me to sit still, so my body, like my mind, cannot be contained. As educators, rather than raising your voices over the rustling of our chains, take them off, uncuff us, unencumbered by the lumbering weight of poverty and privilege, policy and ignorance. I was in the 7th grade when Miss Parker told me, Donovan, we could put all of your excess energy to good use. And she introduced me to the sound of my own voice. She gave me a stage, a platform. She told me that our stories are the ladders that make it easier for us to touch the stars. So climb and grab them. Keep climbing, grab them. Spill your emotions in the Big Dipper and pour out your soul. Light up the world with your luminous allure. To educate requires Galileo-like patience. Today, when I look my students in the eyes, all I see are constellations. If you take the time to connect the dots, you can plot the true shape of their genius shining in their darkest hour. I look each of my students in the eyes and see the same light that aligned Orion's belt in the pyramids of Giza. I see the same twinkle that guided Harriet to freedom. I see them. Beneath their mask and their mischief exists an authentic frustration and enslavement to your standardized assessments. At the core, none of us were meant to be common. We were born to be comets, darting across space and time, leaving our mark as we crash into everything. A crater is a reminder that something amazing happened right here. An indelible impact that shook up the world. Are we not astronomers searching for the next shooting star? I teach in hopes of turning content into rocket ships, tribulations into telescopes, so a child can see their true potential from right where they stand. And injustice is telling them they are stars without acknowledging the night that surrounds them. Injustice is telling them education is the key while you continue to change the locks. Education is no equalizer. Rather, it is the sleep that precedes the American dream. So wake up, lift your voices until you patch every hole in a child's broken sky. Wake up, every child, so they know of their celestial potential. I've been the black hole in a classroom for far too long, absorbing everything without allowing my light to escape. But those days are done. I belong among the stars, and so do you. And so do they. Together, we can inspire galaxies of greatness for generations to come. So no, sky is not the limit. It is only the beginning. Lift off.
So that is a sample of the unfolding higher consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is broadcast weekly from the CosmicVisionNews.com website. Links to stories used in this broadcast are published in the show summary, which is also on the website. CVN can be followed through its Facebook page, Unseen, andminds.com pages and YouTube channel, as well as on Twitter, Google+, and LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that your actions show what your heart is made of. Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love, hold the vision of light and peace in your hearts, and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.